Daily News Simplified, an answer to watch 1.5 hours of newspaper reading. Today we'll be analyzing important news appearing in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 30th July 2019. The topics to be discussed today are reflected on your screen and the timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So let's begin. Now continuing with our discussion of the Prelims 2019 questions which came from the DNS, the question which we will take up today reads, in the context of which of the following do some scientists suggest the use of cirrus cloud thinning technique and the injection of sulfate aerosol into the stratosphere? Now this question is based on a newspaper article which was published in the Hindu newspaper on 25th November 2018. This article spoke about solar geoengineering project and the same was thoroughly discussed in the DNS dated 25th November 2018. If you will look at the screenshot, in the DNS it is clearly mentioned that stratospheric aerosol injection, which is a part of the solar engineering project, is used to reduce the rising temperature or to counter climate change. Further in the next slide, various methods of solar geoengineering were discussed, in which stratospheric aerosols were discussed in detail. As you will see here, it is clearly mentioned that it is based on the principle of volcanic eruption, where the emission of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere blocks the solar radiation and leads to the cooling of the earth. Hence, using the same principle, the scientists had advised injecting sulfur aerosols into the atmosphere, which will help to block the solar radiation and further help to reduce the global warming. Hence, by watching this DNS, one could have easily solved this question, the right answer to which is D, reducing the global warming. The cirrus cloud thinning technique is a cloud modification technique which was also mentioned in this DNS. So having discussed this question, let's start with a newspaper analysis. This news appears on page number 9 and reads, List of iconic tourist sites may be reviewed. This discussion is related to the iconic tourist sites initiative which the government has decided to come out with in order to boost tourism in India. This discussion of ours will be relevant both from the perspective of prelims as well as from the perspective of GS paper 3, where it can be used as a point to promote tourism in our country. Now, during her budget speech earlier this month, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman that 17 iconic tourist sites will be developed by the Government of India into world-class tourist destinations to serve as a model for other tourism sites. However, today's newspaper article states that there is a need to review the sites which are included in this project, because last week there was a demand to include Odisha's Konark Sun Temple and Jagannath Temple at Puri in the list. The main aim of this initiative is to promote tourism in India so that India's soft power can be developed. Though several ministries, starting from the railways to civil aviation, will be involved, but the Ministry of Tourism will be the nodal agency for the implementation of this project. The main aim of the initiative is to develop these tourist sites in a holistic manner and hence will focus on infrastructure, which will include roads, hotels, lodges, etc. It will also focus on connectivity and access to these tourist spots. Further, it will ensure security for the tourists who are visiting such tourist site. This initiative also aims to use green technology to lower the environmental impact of such development. Next, it also wants to involve the local community in the management and preservation of such tourist sites. And lastly, it wants that the private sector should come in to promote and brand such tourist site. Now, as mentioned, there is a high possibility that this list of iconic tourist sites may be reviewed. Now, as per the current list, there are 17 tourist sites which include from the state of Uttar Pradesh, Taj Mahal and Fatehpur Sikri, Ajanta and Ellora from Maharashtra, Humayun's tomb Qutub Minar and Red Fort from Delhi, Kolva Beach from Goa, Amer Fort from Rajasthan, Somnath and Dholavira from Gujarat, Khajuraho from Madhya Pradesh, Hampi from Karnataka, Mahabalipuram from Tamil Nadu, Kaziranga from Assam, Kumarakam from Kerala and Mahabodhi Temple from Bihar. Next, let us discuss what was the need to come out with such an initiative. Now, as per the latest economic survey, the tourism sector in India has shown a sharp slowdown. Further, the growth rate of foreign tourist arrival has also come down considerably. In addition to this, the FDI in hotel and tourism has also declined. In fact, the tourism sector also faces a lot of financial issue because year after year, the funds which are allocated for the tourism ministry are only increasing marginally. Hence, the shortage of funds for dispersal at the hand of the tourism ministry is another contributing factor. Fifthly, the momentum of Adopt a Heritage scheme has also been very sluggish. Now, this Adopt a Heritage scheme was started in the year 2017 as a joint collaboration of Ministry of Tourism, Culture as well as the Archaeological Survey of India. Now, under this scheme, no fund is given by the Ministry of Tourism. Rather, this project envisages involvement of public and private companies as well as organizations and individuals to adopt various monuments and natural heritage sites in the country, primarily under the CSR or Corporate Social Responsibility duties. Now, this project primarily focuses on providing basic amenities at the tourist spots, which include cleanliness, Wi-Fi, safe drinking water, signages, illuminations, etc. Now, as mentioned in the beginning, the list of the tourist sites which are to be included in the iconic tourist site has not yet been finalized and can be reviewed. Hence, we will wait for the final list to come out and then probably we will take up the monuments mentioned under this list and give information on them as well. So with this, let's move on to our next discussion. This news appears on page number 9 and reads, "It's official. Odisha is the origin of Rasogula." The context of the news is that the Odisha Rasogula has received a geographical indications tag. Hence, in our discussion, we'll be talking about the geographical indications tag, which become an important part of the science and technology. Now, for almost 4 to 5 years, the state of West Bengal and Odisha have been at loggerheads with one another over the question who should get a GI tag for the Rasogula. Now, last year, West Bengal got a GI tag for the Rasogullas, and yesterday on Monday, Odisha has got a GI tag for the Odisha Rasogula. Now, this Odisha Rasogula is associated with various traditions of the Puri Jagannath temple, which is located in Odisha. Now, though questions have been raised whether a GI tag can be awarded to two states for what seems as nearly the same products. However, a senior examining officer with the GI tags has said both the GI tags can subsist without contradiction because Rasogula is a generic name of a sweet. It has variants from Bengal and Odisha, and both of these Rasogullas have unique properties attributed to it because they come from different states. Let us now talk about the GI tags. Now, though the topic of GI tags has been covered umpteen number of times in the DNS, today we will talk about the GI tags a little more in detail. Now, GI stands for Geographical Indication. Please mind that the term is indication and not indicator. So basically, a GI is a sign which is used on products that have firstly a specific geographical origin and secondly, they possess certain qualities or reputation that are attributed to them because of the fact that they origin from a particular geographical location. So therefore, the qualities, characteristics or reputation of the product to whom a GI tag is being given should be essentially due to the place of origin. And since the qualities of the product depend upon the geographical place of the production or of the origin of that product, there is a clear link between the product and its origin place of production. Now, usually GIs are given for a period of 10 years, which can again be renewed for another 10 years. Further, the GI tag can be given for agricultural, natural, or even manufactured products, which will include handicraft or industrial goods. Now, as far as geographical indications in India is concerned, India came out with the Geographical Indications of Good Registration and Protection Act of 1993 to comply to its obligation because it's a member of the World Trade Organization. Now, just like any other intellectual property right, the rights of geographical indications are also enforced by application of national legislations, typically in a court of law. Further, the geographical indications tag is administered by the Controller General of Patents, Design and Trademark, who is also the Registrar of Geographical Indications. Hence, the term Registrar of Geographical Indications as well as the Controller General of Patents, Design and Trademark mean the same thing. And this office functions under the Union Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, coming to the next question. What rights does a GI tag protect? Now, if someone has a GI tag, this GI tag enables that person to prevent the use of that GI tag by any third party who is producing a product which does not conform to the applicable standards. For example, in the jurisdiction in which Darjeeling geographical indication is protected, then any producer of a tea can exclude the use of the term Darjeeling if the tea is not produced according to the standards set out in the Code of Practice for the geographical indications. Hence, what is of importance is that whoever is producing that product must conform to the applicable standards of quality of that product. And it is due to this fact that the right to use a protected GI tag belongs to the producers in the geographical area defined, but provided they comply with the specific conditions of production of that product. However, please remember that if somebody has the geographical indications tag, it does not mean that that person can prevent someone else from making a product using the same technique which has been set out in the standards for that indication. So, though the right to use protected geographical indication belongs to the producers in the geographical area defined, however, someone else can also make that product using the same technique. The only thing is that if the product is produced outside the geographical area, then that product will not carry the GI tag. But at the same time, anybody can use the same technique to make that product. Next, let us see what is the difference between a GI and a trademark. Now, as mentioned, geographical indications mean that a good is originating from a particular place of origin. Hence, the geographical place of production holds a lot of importance for a GI. However, on the other hand, trademark basically identifies a good or a service as originating from a particular company. A good example for a trademark would be the company Nike, whose trademark is the tick sign. The second difference is that a trademark often consists of fanciful or arbitrary sign, whereas on the other hand, the name which is used as a GI is usually predetermined by the name of the geographical area. Hence, it is for this reason that for Nike we have this sign, for McDonald's we have an M sign, for Audi we have 4 circles, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, geographical indications name usually sound like Darjeeling tea, Banarsi sari, Chanderi saris, Nagpur oranges, Coorg oranges, Kangra tea, etc. Hence, for a GI tag, the name of the place of the origin is usually put in front of the name of the product. Thirdly, a trademark can be licensed or assigned to anyone anywhere in the world because it is linked to a specific company and not to a particular place. Hence, Nike in India is same as Nike in US. Whereas on the other hand, the GI can be used by any person in the area of origin who produces good according to the specified standards. Hence, it is for this reason that only almonds produced in California can be known as California almonds, and almonds produced in India will not be called as California almonds because the GI cannot be licensed to anyone from outside the place. Next, let us talk about what is an indication of source, because lot many times people get confused between indication of source and geographical indications. Now, an indication of source, as the name suggests, is defined as an indication referring to a country or to a place in that country as being the country or place of origin of that product. Hence, your indication of source talks about the origin of the product. Next, an indication of source does not imply the presence of any special quality, reputation or characteristics of the product essentially attributed to its place of origin. So many times you have seen that on products it is written made in Switzerland or a product of India, etc. So indication of source basically means from where that product is coming and does not necessarily mean that the product has any kind of special quality or reputation or characteristics attributed to the fact that it is coming from that place of origin. Lastly, a similar concept is appellation of origin. Now, appellation of origin is a special kind of geographical indication which is used on the products that have a specific quality that is exclusively or essentially due to the geographical environment in which the products are produced. A very good example of this would be Darjeeling tea, because the qualities and the characteristics which the Darjeeling tea has is because of the fact that it is produced in Darjeeling. Hence, the geographical environment for that tea is only found in Darjeeling and cannot be found anywhere else. Hence, a product which has a special quality due to its geographical environment we'll have a special kind of GI tag, which is appellation of origin. But please do not get confused. Appellation of origin comes within the GI tag only. Lastly, very briefly, what are the benefits of GI? Firstly is when a product is given a GI status, its price increases in the international market. Because obviously consumers, especially in the rich countries, prefer exotic items. Hence, it leads to increase in the export. Next, it can also lead to an increase in the tourism if people are especially coming to a place to see exactly how that product is being made. Thirdly, it can help save the poor producers, which are usually farmers and artisans, because now they will have to face less competition from other people selling fake and bogus products under their names. So this was all about the geographical indications. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 12 and reads, Minorities panel draws its remit. Hence, as part of our discussion, we'll be talking about the minorities as well as the National Commission of Minorities. This entire discussion of ours will become relevant from the perspective of GS Paper 2 under the category of polity. Now, the context of the news is that recently the National Commission on Minorities refused to entertain a plea which wanted to declare Hindus as minorities in all those states where they do not form the majority of the population. The NCM, while responding to the petition, clearly said that the power to declare a community as a minority community is vested with the central government as provided under the National Commission of Minorities Act of 1992. In addition to this, a plethora of judgments have time and again said that the work of the NCM is to propose ways to create such kind of environment that we do not need this majority-minority divide. That is to say, they need to find out ways to eliminate the need for identifying minority communities and should work towards maintaining the unity and integrity of India. So this was the entire context. Hence, in this regard, let us first see who are the minorities. Well, at the beginning only you should know that the term minority is not defined in the Constitution of India. In fact, the term minorities has been mentioned under the National Commission of Minorities Act of 1992, whose Section 2C clearly states that a minority for the purpose of this Act is a community which is notified by the central government. Hence, it is left up to the central government to notify which community is a minority. And even today, there is no clear understanding of what formula does the central government use to notify who is a minority. Now, though the Constitution of India does not define who is a minority, it does provide for certain constitutional safeguards for the protection and advancement of minorities in India. And these safeguards are Article 29 and 30, which are fundamental rights. Article 29 talks about right of any section of the citizen to conserve its distinct language, script or culture. Now here just keep in mind that Article 29 is not just limited to minorities because the term here used is any section of the citizen. So the Supreme Court has interpreted this article to extend to any community in India. Article 30 talks about the right of all religious as well as linguistic minorities to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. Next is Article 347, which says that if the President is satisfied that a substantial proportion of the population of a state desires the use of any language spoken by them to be recognized by that state, then the President will direct that such a language should also be officially recognized throughout the state or any part of the state. Further, Article 350A says that it shall be endeavour of every state to provide adequate facilities for instruction in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education. Next, Article 350B states that there shall be a special officer for linguistic minorities which will be appointed by the President. And it shall be the duty of the special officer to investigate all matters related to the safeguards provided for the linguistic minorities under the Constitution of India. Now, by studying Article 29 and 30, one can easily infer that the term minority primarily refers to linguistic as well as religious minorities. Hence, there are two kinds of minorities in India, linguistic and religious minority, as per what can be inferred from Article 29 and Article 30. Now, the central government of India, by way of two notifications, one in the year 1993 and another in the year 2004, has notified 6 religious minorities in India, namely the Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, Christians, as well as Parsis or Zoroastrians. Next, moving on to the moot question, how are minorities decided in India? Well, a very simple answer to this will be that the process of identification of minorities is very unclear and ambiguous. We will see how. But firstly, let us see who is a minority as per international law. Now, under the international law, minorities are groups that possess distinct and stable ethnic, religious, or linguistic characteristics. And here the crucial point is that all these characteristics should be different from the rest of the population. Further, international law also says that a minority is a group that is numerically smaller in relation to the rest of the population, and it is non-dominant to the extent that its values are either inadequately or not represented in the public sphere. Now, when it comes to India, the evolution of the definition of minority has been a very bumpy road. Now, if one wants an answer as to how religious or linguistic minorities are identified, one needs to trace the judicial evolution of the term minority. Now, way back in the year 1958, Supreme Court in the Kerala Education Bill said that a minority community is a one which is numerically less than 50%. Hence, the Supreme Court clearly stated that numerical inferiority has to be one of the major bases on which minorities have to be identified. But then the court asked the next question, 50% of what? That is, whether the numerical inferiority has to be within the state or within the whole of India. And this was a question which was left undecided or unanswered. Hence, even today, though it is clear that minorities have to be identified majorly on the basis of their numerical inferiority, but it is not clear whether they have to be numerically inferior when we consider the population of the state or whether when we consider the population of the entire India. Then moving ahead, there were many other cases, but the next landmark case came in the year 2002 in the form of the TM Pai case. Now, in this judgment, the court examined afresh the meaning of minority under Article 30 and came to the conclusion that since the reorganization of states in India was made on the basis of linguistic lines, hence religious and linguistic minorities should be considered state-wise. However, this remark of the Supreme Court led to the opening of the Pandora's box for the minorities in India. Then finally, in the year 2005, in the Bal Patil case, it was said that the religious and the linguistic minorities should be treated differently. It agreed with the TM Pai case that linguistic minorities are to be identified on the basis of their population within a particular state of India. However, on the other hand, it said that identifying religious minority on the basis of their population at the state level will go against the integrity and secular fabric of India. Hence, they said that the religious minority should be decided on the basis of population of the entire nation and not state-wise. Hence, this was the evolution of how minorities are to be decided in India. Even today, we do not have a clear-cut formula as to how minorities have to be identified. In fact, some of the suggestions given by the court has become redundant. For example, after the formation of Telangana, it is very much clear that the linguistic basis of state creation is no longer a valid criteria because Telangana was not separated from Andhra Pradesh on the basis of linguistic line. Therefore, this has again become a grey area, and the Supreme Court might want to re-examine this issue, especially in the context of linguistic minorities. Further, as a way forward, another approach can be that religious minorities should be defined nationally, whereas linguistic minorities should be defined on the basis of the state, as was held in the Bal Patil case, because this seems to be one of the easier methods to define minorities. Next, there is another suggestion that the minorities can be determined in relation to a particular law, that is on the basis of law. That if minorities claiming protection under a state law, then minorities can be defined on the basis of their numerical inferiority in the state. And if the minorities are claiming protection under a central or a parliamentary law, then minorities can be defined nationally. So this was about the minorities. Let us very briefly also talk about the National Commission of Minorities. Now, the National Commission for Minorities is a statutory body established under the National Commission for Minorities Act of 1992. Now, the main function of this body is firstly to evaluate the progress of development of the minorities in India as well as its various states. Second is to monitor the working of the safeguards provided in the Constitution as well as the laws enacted by the Parliament and the state legislature. Third is to make recommendations for the effective implementation of the safeguards for the protection of the interests of the minorities. Third, it looks into specific complaints regarding deprivation of rights and safeguards of the minorities. Fifthly, it suggests appropriate measures which can be undertaken by the central government or the state government in respect of any minority. And sixthly, it also makes periodical and special reports which are tabled in front of the central government on any matter pertaining to the minorities. Now, coming to its powers, it has the power to summon and enforce the attendance of any person. Second, it can ask for the discovery and production of any document. Third, it can receive evidence on affidavit. And fourthly, it can ask for requisition of any public record from any court or office in India. Now, as far as its composition is concerned, it shall consist of a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and 5 other members, all of whom will be nominated by the central government from amongst persons of eminence, ability, and integrity. Now, all the members, including the chairperson, shall be from amongst the minority communities. Moreover, as far as the term is concerned, members as well as the chairpersons will hold the office for a term of 3 years. And lastly, the member and the chairperson can be removed by the central government on the grounds that they have become an undischarged insolvent or are convicted for an offence which involves moral turpitude, have become of unsound mind, refuse to act or become incapable of acting, have been absent for 3 consecutive meetings, or have abused their position. So this was all about the National Commissions for Minorities. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 1 and is in the context of the recently released 4th Tiger Census. This entire discussion of ours will become relevant both from the perspective of prelims and mains in the category of environment. Now, yesterday, Prime Minister released the 4th Tiger Census. Now, the 4th Tiger Census was conducted by the National Tiger Conservation Authority in collaboration with the State Forest Departments, conservation NGOs, and was coordinated by the Wildlife Institute of India. Details about the National Tiger Conservation Authority has been provided in the PDF. Now, the Tiger Census or the Tiger Estimation exercise includes both habitat assessment as well as the prey estimation. Now, since the movement of tigers is not restricted to the state boundaries, their numbers is actually calculated in terms of landscapes rather than the states. In India, we have 5 tiger landscapes, namely Shivalik Hills and the Gangetic Plains, Central Indian Landscape and the Eastern Ghats, third is the Western Ghats, fourth is Northeast Hills and the Brahmaputra Plains, and the 5th is Sundarbans. The importance of this tiger census lies in the fact that India is home to more than 80% of world's wild tiger, and hence it is very crucial to keep track of their numbers, especially from the perspective of conservation efforts. Because the numbers of tigers reflect the success or failure of the conservation efforts of the country as well as on the global level. Moreover, for a fast-growing economy like India, where the government is trying hard to balance development as well as conservation, census like these become more important. In addition to this, the Global Tiger Forum, which is an international collaboration of tiger-bearing countries, has set the global target of doubling the count of tigers in the wild by 2022. Next, let us talk about the significance or importance of tigers. Now, tiger is a carnivorous animal which sits at the peak or at the top of the food chain. Hence, its conservation becomes very important to ensure the well-being of the entire ecosystem. The reason is that the tiger helps to maintain a healthy balance between the prey herbivores as well as the vegetation upon which they feed. Because obviously, a fall in the numbers of tigers will lead to an increase in the numbers of herbivores, which in turn will lead to a shortage in the plant and vegetation. Therefore, tiger is very important to maintain the balance between the herbivores and the vegetation upon which they feed. The extinction of the top predator, like the tiger, is an indication that the ecosystem is not sufficiently protected and further tells us that the ecosystem will not survive without the tiger. Next, let's talk about the highlights or the findings of the survey. The foremost finding is a significant increase in the numbers of tigers in India. In fact, from the last census of 2014, the tiger population has increased by over 33%. Moreover, as far as the state's performance are concerned, the maximum increase has been in Madhya Pradesh of almost 71%, followed by Maharashtra. Third is Karnataka, followed by Uttarakhand. Now, though Uttarakhand has recorded 1% more increase than Karnataka, the reason why Uttarakhand has been placed 4 is because Uttarakhand has gained only over 100 tigers, whereas Karnataka has gained around 118 tigers. Now, as far as the states who performed badly, it was Chhattisgarh who recorded the worst performance, as there was a fall in the number of tigers from 46 to only 19. And the reason for this has been attributed to the Naxalite insurgency which occurs in Chhattisgarh. The third finding is that there has been a shrinkage in the overall occupied areas by the tigers. Now it has found out that overall the areas occupied by tigers have shrunk because in some of the sampled forests, no evidence of tiger presence was found. And secondly, some of the forests that had tiger presence in 2014, their sampling was not done in this survey. Hence, due to these two reasons combined, there has been a shrinkage in the tiger occupied areas. Next, as far as the landscapes are concerned, the Shivaliks, Western Ghats and the Northeast Hills have shown a decline in the area occupied by the tigers, whereas Central India and Sundarbans have registered an increase in the area occupied by the tigers. Fourthly, in 3 tiger reserves, namely Buxa in West Bengal, Dampa in Mizoram and Palamau in Jharkhand, no tigers were found at all. Moving ahead, in addition with this census, a survey was carried out on the effectiveness of the management of tiger reserves, known as the Management Effectiveness Evaluation of Tiger Reserves. As per this survey, the Pench Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh scored the highest. Further, the Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve in Tamil Nadu showed the highest increment in the management since the last cycle. So therefore, do not get confused. Highest increment was by Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, whereas the highest points or the best performance was by the Pench Tiger Reserve. Next, 42% of the tiger reserves fell in very good management category, 34 in the good category and 24 in the fair category, while no tiger reserve was rated poor. And lastly, the increase in the numbers of tigers can be attributed to the conservation efforts by the government, which include various projects and initiatives, some of which are the Project Tiger, integrated development of wildlife habitats, creation of special tiger protection forces, spatial monitoring and reporting tool or the SMART tool, conservation assured tiger standards, CATS, or e-surveillance systems, M-Stripes initiative, etc. So these were the major points from the tiger census. With this, let's move on to our next news. This next news appears on page number 10 and is an editorial on India-Pak relationship, hence will become important from the perspective of GS Paper 2 under the category of international relations. Now the context of the news is that recently Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, said that he can mediate in the Kashmir conflict between India and Pakistan. In fact, it is not just Donald Trump. Similar offers has been made by various other countries and international organizations to help find a solution to the Kashmir issue. However, India has clearly maintained the stand that territorial disputes between India and Pakistan will be resolved only bilaterally and hence does not require any third-party intervention or mediation. Pakistan, on the other hand, prefers to have a third-party mediation in India-Pakistan conflicts. Hence, it is in this regard that the author is giving us certain reasons as to why India does not approve of third-party intervention, especially on the Kashmir issue. Now, the first reason is more often than not, any third party, be it a country or an international organization, comes in with their own agenda and hence will try to mediate based on their national interest or agenda rather than as a neutral observer. Hence, the first issue is the doubt which India has regarding the neutrality of the third party. Second point by the author is that media today is very hyper-jingoistic and is mainly driven by commercial interest. Hence, it is felt that a very delicate and sensitive topic like Kashmir will not be handled objectively by the media, and hence the attention which this Kashmir issue will get from the media will make the successful mediation very difficult for all parties involved. Thirdly, political parties in both India and Pakistan, as well as other influential actors like the military in Pakistan, would all have to agree for the terms of reference for mediation, which again becomes very difficult to ensure. Fourthly, India very well realizes its mistake of taking the Kashmir issue to the UN. Therefore, now India does not recognize the work of United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan's peacekeeping work in Kashmir. However, you should know that Pakistan continues to do so. Next, even the Shimla Agreement of 1972 had clearly stated that the Kashmir issue will be a bilateral issue which will not involve any third-party mediation or involvement. In fact, India even disapproves if any country or organization makes even a reference to the Kashmir issue because it feels it is strictly a bilateral issue. The next point talks about the difference in perspective between India and Pakistan. Now, India wants to highlight the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism which happens in Kashmir. Similarly, on the other hand, Pakistan wants to highlight India's alleged human rights violation in the valley. And since there is a stark difference between the perception both these countries want to project, India has to clearly define to what extent it will allow third-party intervention on the Kashmir issue. That is, if at all it ever decides to involve a third party. Last, in conclusion, the author says, there is a big difference between conflict resolution and crisis management. Now, conflict resolution is when the parties which are involved in the mediation try to address and resolve the root cause of the conflict. For example, the root cause of conflict between India and Pakistan is the Kashmir issue. Whereas on the other hand, crisis management means that mediation is done during an ongoing crisis in order to ensure that it does not escalate or snowballs into a major conflict. A good example of the crisis management will be the Balakot crisis, wherein the UAE, US and other countries mediated to ensure the crisis does not escalate into a further war. And in fact, India is very much fine with unofficial mediation during crisis management, but will not allow any third-party intervention or mediation in conflict management, especially on sensitive issues like Kashmir. Lastly, the author has said that if India and Pakistan do not resolve their conflicts by themselves, then slowly and eventually Pakistan's ability to bring on board other third party to intervene in the Kashmir issue will keep on growing. Hence, if India really wants to stop the intervention of any third party in the Kashmir issue, it really needs to find a solution to solve the Kashmir issue with Pakistan bilaterally. So this was all about today's news. With this, let's move on to our practice questions. Now, based on our today's discussion, here is the first set of your prelims practice question. Please pause the video and solve them. We'll discuss the answer after 5 seconds. Question number 1 reads, which of the following states have registered an increase in the population of tigers in the 4th tiger census of 2018? First option, Madhya Pradesh, this is correct. Second, Karnataka, this is also right. Third, Chhattisgarh, this is incorrect. Hence, the right answer becomes B, 1 and 2 only. Question number 2 reads, consider the following statements related to minorities in India. The first statement, the term minorities has been defined in the Constitution of India. This is incorrect. It has not been defined in the Constitution of India. Second, National Commission for Minorities is a statutory body. This is correct. It was established under the National Commission for Minorities Act of 1992. Hence, the right answer becomes B, 2 only. Now, here is the next set of your prelims practice question. Please again pause the video and solve them. We'll discuss the answer after 5 seconds. Question number 3 gives us 3 pairs of the tiger reserves and the state they are found in. First, Buxa and West Bengal. This is correct. Second, Dampa and Mizoram. This is also right. Third, Palamau and Jharkhand. This is also correct. Hence, the right answer is D, all of the above. Question number 4 is in relation with geographical indications in India. First statement, both West Bengal and Odisha have a GI tag for Rasogula. Now, this is correct. Second, having a GI tag prevents any third party from using the same technique provided in the standards of that indication. This is incorrect. Hence, the right answer becomes A, 1 only. With this, we come to an end for today's discussion. Let's move to the question for the day.